All right, we're live.
Hey, yo, what's up, what's up?
Welcome to your Everyday Rich podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Jen.
I'm Jason Cowell. Thank you very much for joining back for another week of shenanigans on our couch. And the thing that the topic today about signs you're doing financially well, even though you may not feel like it. We've talked to several people about this, where especially in this higher inflationary market,
Feels like we're not going anywhere.
yeah, a lot of people feel stuck. Almost, right? Almost kind of, it's like this pause where you're chugging along. You might be making good money. I'm gonna call it quote unquote good money. Anyways, you're making an earning. You're living. So yeah, Jen's got this wicked cough going on. So this episode will probably we'll have some
choppy edits.
Is what it is, man.
The show must go on.
Show must go on. But yeah, we're just saying that, it feels like you're making a living, but it's hard. It doesn't feel like you're living in the environment that we're living in right now.
Yeah, I think even for us, I think there are times where you feel like, okay, I'm saving, I'm investing, but why do I still feel like I'm not getting where I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing we're trying to address today is maybe you are. Maybe there's signs that you are, but it just doesn't feel like it.
Yeah. And, part of this is like, if you relate back, my childhood is that I never knew if my parents felt like they were doing okay, or they were like seriously struggling, or in between, because like they never mentioned anything like this. They went to work, came home, and after we went to bed, I have no idea what they talked about. They could be crying about bills, or maybe everything was okay, but maybe it wasn't. And, I guarantee you, they went through the same questions about like, man, how are we doing this? How is everyone else doing this? So, we wanted to address kind of like what we observe, and just talking to other people too about like why we feel that you might be doing okay, even though it doesn't feel like it. Because a lot of it is this race. It feels like we're racing against others, but really it's like, well, the race is against yourself.
Yeah.
So we want to break down kind of some of the reasons that we feel that you're doing okay, right? But you may not feel like it. So, but I think the first thing is that, you're not all about flaunting your status. And, it's a simple thing about like, it's not part of your DNA that you don't flash your wealth.
Yeah, you don't have the need to show others that, hey, I'm successful, I make money, I'm like wealthy or whatever.
Yeah, or rich or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And like, because, we're so conditioned to show outsiders our success, like this definition of success. And you see, I mean, the famous comparison is the Lamborghini or the Ferrari, right? The guy or girl that's driving the Ferrari or Lamborghini, and you're like, man, they must be successful. Like, they must be successful.
Yeah, maybe they're only renting the car for the day.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. How do you know that they're
it's true?
How do you know they're successful? Right? Granted that you probably know people that actually truly are, I'm going to say, maybe rich or wealthy, and their assets or their income or their revenue can actually afford, like literally afford to pay for the Lamborghini. But this really small amount of people.
Yep.
And you might not even know anyone that personally knows anyone. But I mean, just reading about this a lot, and even accountants will tell you it's not all what it seems. You know what I'm saying?
Never is.
So, it's really easy to finance something like a Lambo or a Ferrari on a loan. But, it's the same thing with the Rolex thing too, right? I think social media has made it seem like if you don't have a Rolex, you're not doing well either. Your Timex on your watch, it's like, guys, and here's the thing is that, like, I think a lot of it is when when we're conditioned to portray our wealth, and especially now with social media, is that we're only showing movie clips. It's like the trailer. We're showing clips of the trailer of our lives
Mhm.
and of people that are, let's go, so-called wealthy and rich, driving these Lambos and stuff and Ferraris. But really, you don't see the whole movie,
Yeah.
right? You don't know what's going on in the back of their lives.
Well, those, because people only show what they want you to see.
Part of that is like, we did some research here, and it's like, research actually shows that friends and peers have the biggest impact rather than like general society as a whole on what we feel as our status.
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah. And social media has obviously made a bigger contribution to this, right? Because now we only get a glimpse of the Facebook you or the Instagram you versus real you, right? It's the filter world. So I'm going to come back on this because it's like, this is called the social comparison theory, and it's really important to tie this all back together. Like I see it as, maybe you don't have the spending mentality, right? Like you don't care for things like that. But there's obviously people, that buy vehicles like this because of the engineering behind it, the experience. Where I like that. I
The
like
driving
the driving
experience,
experience. I like that. But when it comes down to it, most of it is just an ego thing, where it's like you're just spending stuff to impress people that nobody knows about you.
Yep.
Right. And is that going to make you happy? Maybe for a little bit. It's like a temporary measure, right? You just buy stuff temporarily to make you happy, and then that dopamine hit wears off, and a Lambo just becomes a Lambo for you.
Well, then you buy the next Lambo.
Right, but then you can afford it.
Then you trade in your first Lambo for the second Lambo.
Yeah, maybe. So, I mean, I guess, the Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel has a really good line here, but in terms of wrapping up like your status and how like spending money to show it off to people is, spending money to show people you're wealthy or how wealthy you are is the fastest way to have less money.
100%.
Facts. Reason number 2 that we feel like is, you're doing financially well even though you don't feel like it, is spending doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
Like, it actually doesn't bring you joy by spending money.
Well, we just touched on it earlier about the Lambo, right? It's like a short-term feeling where you're like, hey, you're going to buy that Lambo, that whatever materialistic thing. And yeah, it feels good to get something new. Like that's, not unheard of. But what happens a day later, a week later, a month later? What happens to that feeling?
Yeah, you can relate that to anything, right?
Yeah.
We pick on the Lambo because, I mean, it's the easiest. It's one of the most popular wealth status things in today's society. But think of anything, like any new toy, a purse, shoes, clothing, watches. I don't know, new golf clubs a new driver every year. Golf clubs.
You mean that doesn't make you happy?
It does for a bit after I can't friggin' hit the ball straight. And you're like, why doesn't this thing go straight?
Oh, that's too funny.
So, but yeah, like if you think spending aimlessly on stuff will make you happy, you pretty much are going to waste a lot of money. You're going to find out that you're going to waste a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you're just going to be an endless circle of just buying shit that you don't need.
Yep.
So I truly believe that this idea of buying stuff to make you happy is really, it's this false belief that people that don't have a reason for their money believe that buying stuff ultimately will give them a reason to be happy. So, like I said, it's a short-term satisfaction thing. So,
agreed.
And there's going to be people that you will know, or that you will meet in life, or that you watch on social media, that can literally buy everything. They can buy everything that they want.
Yeah.
Because they have the means to do that. But by comparing yourself to those people,
another social comparison.
Man, yeah, you're always going to feel like you're going to be behind.
Yep.
No matter what. So that's the challenge, is that you kind of have to fight that human nature.
Yeah. For sure.
Next thing.
Don't sweat the small things.
What's that?
You don't sweat the small things. So that's essentially like things like $5 Starbucks and like your Tim Hortons coffee in the morning.
Isn't that just ghost money that disappears and makes you poor?
It does, but it's not going to make you feel like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like I'm going to go in debt. Right.
Mm.
So if you're able to manage that and you're able to spend those little things, you don't sweat it, then I would say you're probably in a good place.
Yeah, I think it's the things that you're not sweating, the things that are within reason. Yeah. I always joke it's like if I'm going to go buy a burrito and they ask me, "Hey, would you like to add a avocado to that?"
Guac.
It's $2 more for guac.
Nope.
I go, "Yes, please."
I still say no.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I say no, but lately I've been like, "Hey,
Add
man,
the guac.
sure, add the guac, man. Make me feel special today." Um, yeah, but I'll always be cheap, that's for sure. But yeah, like things in terms of like the let's say your car breaks down,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not sweating it out that you have to pay a couple $100 to repair your car. That's the kind of things that we're talking about, like where in the grand scheme of things, for some people, yes, it's big money,
Mm-hmm.
but if you are in that position where you can
Yeah.
pony it up and it's not impacting your life, you're probably doing okay.
And the thing to get to that point is to make a provision for it.
Yeah, and I think that's actually part of the emergency fund.
Yeah.
So another thing is that you actually have another reason that you are doing okay, you may not realize, is you have an emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
Um the there's this so I was kind of researching this, Jen, and any chartered accountants out here will appreciate this because I took this off the 2022 CPA survey. Um Half of Canadians cannot come up with $2,500 in a pinch. And 38% of Canadians don't have $1,000 in their bank account, their savings,
Mm-hmm.
as an emergency fund. And a startling quarter of all Canadians could not come up with just $500 during an emergency without selling something or borrowing
Mm-hmm.
to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's pretty
That's scary
start. Yeah,
stuff.
that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
And listen, guys, like I don't know your situation. So whoever's listening, I don't know where you guys are in your journey, and this is not a sense of entitlement here for us to
Mm-hmm.
say like, oh God, how can you not come up with $500?
Yep.
Because we recognize that it's challenging out there, and not everyone has the means and capabilities to do that. But what I'm saying is that for a large proportion of millennials, and if you are able to do that, you're doing okay, man. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing okay, right? You're doing all right. So, um, and part of also like being able to have the emergency fund goes back to another reason, which is you're actually living below your means.
That's probably the biggest reason, I
Mm-hmm.
think. Like, it's easy to say, oh, I'm rich, but, if you're spending it all, then what's really what you've got left?
It's true, right? It's this whole income versus expenses. So,
Yeah.
if
Are
you're,
you are you living below what you make?
that's
Like,
right.
it's simple.
It's it's something where I think we all experience, right? Listen, like I remember when I first got my big raise, and or even if I worked a whole bunch of overtime on one of my jobs where I actually had overtime and like the paycheck was double.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa, double paycheck. Let's go spend some money.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like that. It was more like took half of that and took half of the overtime, put it away,
Yeah.
and then obviously spent the other half.
Mm-hmm.
Versus where I think a lot of many people will take all of that overtime and blow it off.
Yeah. Because then the person who is, let's say, wearing the Louboutin shoes and driving the fancy car may not be more well off than the person beside them who is driving the regular Honda Civic and living in their starter home. If the wealthy person is just spending all the money,
Yeah.
the other person is no further ahead than the other person.
Yeah, and I think there's this distinguishing factor about wealth and rich, right? So like wealth is not the same of income. Like you make good income every year and you spend it all, you're not becoming wealthier.
No, that's what I'm saying. You're no different than the other person who's making less income, but spending less.
Yeah, you're just living high. That's it.
Yep.
Right? You're just living a high lifestyle. So I've always used this metric where if you get a if you get a pay increase or some sort of bump in your salary or your income or your revenue, whatever it is, you're self-employed, obviously reinvest it back into yourself. But give you an example, 15%. Let's say you got an extra 15% somehow.
Yeah.
Take that. What, like, are you gonna just spend
Spend
all
it all.
15%? Because the idea here is that you're trying to create a larger gap between your income and your expenses as you kind of go through your journey here, your financial journey. Because if you always have the same, you always bump your income, your spending, your expenses the same as your income, you'll always be on par. You'll never be able to get ahead. And that's the part we want you to go and realize that having a disproportionate gap there is gonna what God, I can't speak today, is what will be able to make you feel and actually get ahead.
Yeah.
So you can actually see it in your bank account. You're actually, that you're actually increasing your savings,
The
your
number is
investments.
increasing.
Yeah, right. So,
And the other part of that equation that's really important is debt. So managing your debt, right? So if you're able to make your payments, pay off your credit card, pay your mortgage, things like that, I would say you're doing okay.
yeah, and to caveat that is that you're not missing payments.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just making the minimum payment. When I say to credit cards,
Yeah.
because yes, you may be making payments if it's minimum on credit cards, but it's actually never paying that down. But in today's society and environment, is like you said, yeah, if you are paying it, you are meeting those monthly payments, you're creating a manageable debt load, which means you can handle it.
Yep.
So, and part of having a manageable debt load, investing more or saving, having a larger income to expense ratio, kind of falls into this next reason here, is that you're actually saving and investing. Right? So if you're able to do one, great. But in order to actually build your wealth, right, to build funds for down the road into the retirement or whatever it is, right, what do we want to call this thing, you got to do both. Like, you have to do both. There's no way around it. Like, you cannot save your wealth. You cannot save your wealth. Man, guys, sorry, I cannot talk today.
Neither can I.
You cannot save your way to retirement or save your way to wealth.
Unfortunately, no.
No. As much as what your parents told you, just save your money. Shit don't work.
Put in your mattress.
Shit don't work.
No.
Okay, sorry. And here's the thing is that, like, the reason why you invest is because you're trying to grow assets, right? You take income that you earn and you buy assets that will increase in value over time. That's the name of the game. You're transferring it from one class to the other. So let's say the idea is that you're trying to grow your long-term wealth by buying assets so that it helps your future, right? Wealth equals future. Think of it that way. Whereas saving your cash is kind of for short-term stuff.
Yeah, your emergency fund we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Something comes up, car repairs, you have to help somebody pay off a bill or whatever, family member, you have something there that you can take out immediately.
Yep. Or it's vacations or stuff like that.
Well, I wouldn't take vacation out of an emergency fund.
No, but you have you have separate savings account or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes, that you're trying to save up for something that you want to purchase, like a car, like a vacation, like things like that, right?
Yeah, because it's important to have those buckets in there to help you keep disciplined, right? Because if you just have it all in one, it's hard for you to kind of mentally allocate those to say, let's say if you got $10,000 in the bank in your savings, okay, how do you know what's for what?
Yeah.
So it's just another tip. I would.
It's like having a money jar.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You just put money in the jar, to save up for whatever that is you're saving up for.
Yeah. Funny story. Remember, Jen? So we got our kids like a piggy bank really, really early on. It was just something that we found. And we had, every time we had leftover change or whatever, we would put it inside the piggy bank, and kind of this behavior showing them. And one day, Josh, our eldest, was just like, why do you have coins? Like, what are these coins, these things, right? Why do you put it in here? Because every time you pay, you just use your phone
Yep, or a card.
or the card, right? And, we taught him what a credit card is and all that stuff.
It's
And it's just
true.
like, why this money? And
We
we're
don't
just
use
like,
cash.
all right, kid, we'll talk about fiat currency about a little bit later. But it's just kind of funny. It's the whole idea of being able to like create a habit of saving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it starts with that first. Another thing that I found online doing my research here. 1/3 of all Canadians do not save anything. 1/3 of Canadians do not save anything.
Mm-hmm.
While half of Canadians only save roughly 10% of their post-tax earnings.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's tough, man. So, if just think about it, if you're part of that 10%, it's gonna be tough. Like half people only save 10% of their money.
Mm-hmm. You have
Hey,
to make a change,
it's
right? Like
better
at some
than
point.
it's better than nothing.
Yep.
But it has to increase that rate.
Yep. Got to find ways to increase it.
Yeah. So
whether it's increasing your income or decreasing your expenses or both.
yeah, but that's part of it too, right? That the story there is only, it says saving, right?
Yeah.
So saving is one thing. So if you're only saving but you're not investing, that 10% only makes you go so far. So it's like you have to do both, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to find a way to increase it. And I think when we kind of put all these kind of reasons together and these observations that we talked about, it always circled back to this one thing where we feel like we're not getting ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though we've identified, if you kind of fall, if you have heard all these reasons that we listed, and you actually were like, yeah, that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like I'm not. It's because of social comparison theory.
I think that's the worst out of all of them, just because we're in a world where I don't think social media makes it any better, but everybody is trying to get somewhere as quickly as possible. Like we're just so like impatient.
Yeah.
Like the world is getting more impatient and impatient.
Yes.
Right? Like just I don't know what it is, but socially we're just all getting more impatient. So we're trying to get to this place of financial freedom, whatever you want to call it, like as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And if one person is like one step or two steps ahead of you, you're like, oh my God, like why am I not there yet?
Yeah.
Like why I'm not like this person. Right?
So true.
It's constant. It's constant every single day.
And we form identities by comparing ourselves to our social circle.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's kind of how human nature works. And like you were mentioning, Jen, like we feel guilty if we aren't there yet. Like we see a friend or a peer that's, I don't know, let's call it car upgrade season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Went and bought a new car.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be driving your ratty, taggy old vehicle.
Yeah.
AKA the shit box. Whatever it is, right? I called my car the shit box before.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, God damn it, what the fuck?
Like, why can't I do what they're doing?
Yeah, right? And then now you feel guilty. But you might be making 6 figures.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the only way to counteract that is literally like you can only compare to yourself. Like it's obviously easier said than done. Like I'm saying that now. Like I think me and you both,
absolutely,
we suffer from social comparison as well.
Yeah.
And you guys have to keep reminding yourself that the only person that you should be comparing to is yourself.
Yeah.
Did you do better this year than last year? Were you able to save more or invest more this year than last year? Have your investments done better this year than last year? Right? Don't compare your investments to somebody else's investments. Don't compare how many quote unquote doors you have. I hate this, but how many doors you have with someone else's how many doors.
Oh,
it's so dumb. Yeah, from a real estate perspective, right? Like any type of investment, right? Like that's one of the investments we have, right? So it's kind of like the social comparison with not knowing what other people, like you said, behind closed doors, what other people have or the big picture. You're only seeing a glimpse of what they're showing you, right?
Yeah, and that feeling will never go away. Like that's just facts, right?
Yeah.
That feeling of social comparison will never go away. So it's just you have to constantly battle it and fight it and tell yourself, hey, my journey is based on my own standards and beliefs and my own goals.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's why you got to write your own goals down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go check
Right.
out our goal setting episode.
And that's why you write
Shameless
them
plug.
down. That's why you write them down. You write them down so you look at them and you're looking at them. You're not looking at social media or someone else's like investment account. You know what I mean? You're looking at what you wrote down as your goal to do better than what you did before.
Yeah. And just kind of give you some, if we're talking about comparisons, right? If you really want to look at data, if you compare the American or Canadian average salary, it's like 40 and change, or $50,000 in change, around that 40 to $50,000 in the US,
Mm-hmm.
and around something similar in Canada.
Okay.
So the average salary, let's call it $45,000. And if you're making more than that, double that, whatever, dude, you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing okay, right?
Yep.
And on the grand scheme, if we take it even bigger from a just perspective standpoint, from a worldwide, like $45,000 puts you in the upper 70%.
Yeah, but even that, like, I would say don't even compare yourself to that, because what if you look at it and you're like, oh, you know what, I'm below the average of the Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's another social comparison where you're looking at stats of the millions of people in Canada and how much they make, right? I think a better way of doing it is, are you making more? Are you progressively increasing your income?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether it's through your own job. So are you asking for that raise? Are you working for that raise? Are you working for that promotion to increase your income so that you're coming from, let's say, 45,000 to 50,000? I don't know, whatever. Right?
Yep.
Are you, if you're can't, or if you're not able to do that within your industry, okay, what can you do? Maybe you move industries
Yep.
so you can earn a higher income, right? That's how you compare yourself to your previous self.
Yeah.
Right? Versus comparing it to the quote unquote average Canadian, right? Like, are you doing better than what you did before?
Yeah. Yeah. Year over year.
Yeah.
How's your business doing? Like, you as a business, you are the business, right? And here's one thing that I'm gonna kind of go sidebar on. Okay, just give me a sec here. I remember talking to a friend who was basically mentioning, it was the kind of the oh must be nice conversation,
Mm-hmm.
where you're in an industry that allows you to negotiate your salary or your raises and stuff like that.
Okay.
And my immediate response was, well, why do you feel like yours isn't? Like, why do you feel like you can't actually ask for it?
Mm-hmm.
Just because the industry says so? How can you put yourself in a position where it gives you that opportunity to ask for that?
Mm-hmm.
To say, hey, well, this is what I've done for the business, or this is what I've done for whatever.
Yeah.
This is what I've done to set myself apart. If you are an employee,
Yeah.
then it's almost like, well, you have evidence, right? It's, think of it as like, yo, you're trying, like when a NBA star, how they make their bonuses off season. It's like, well, did I make all NBA? Did I make all-star team? Did I make defensive player of the year kind of thing? Like, you put yourself in a position, right?
Yeah.
You got to pat your stats. But if your stats are like mediocre bench player, of course, who the fuck's going to give you anything?
Exactly. You got to do the work.
Yeah, you have to do the work. And I hate that mentality of saying, well, you're not in a position to be able to do that because of other factors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, put yourself out of that bullshit.
Do the work.
Do the fucking work. Stop complaining.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sometimes there's a sense of entitlement, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to this day and age. So, like I said earlier, you got to do the work so that they can't say no.
Exactly. Sorry, that was a sidebar there. Got me heated there. Whee! And yeah, you know what's funny? You were mentioning about this whole like comparison game, especially in the real estate industry.
Yeah. How many doors?
Yeah, how many doors? You're mentioning that. If you invest in real estate or you're a real estate investor, please stop. Please stop starting a conversation by asking how many doors do you have.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, it's so annoying. And it's the number one turnoff as me. I consider ourselves new investors, like newbies. If you're under 10 years, you're a new investor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry. That's what I think. Right. So I remember going to one of these investor meetups, right? And good, solid people in there, a lot of big names. And I remember this one guy came up to me, just like, I didn't even know him, right? Comes up to me, hey, what's up? How's it going? My name is, I don't even remember. Hey, I'm Jason. And he goes, oh, cool. Hey, how many doors you got? I'm like, what the fuck?
What?
How many
What does that?
doors do I
What does
like?
that do with anything?
Was this a dick measuring contest? Like,
Essentially, is what it is.
yeah, like, I'm like, honestly, I was going to say, oh, I got 72 doors. I was gonna say that. I'm just going to see his face, right? But it's just like, see, the whole thing is that they're just trying to size you up. It's this whole social comparison game of
Yep.
making yourself feel better and blah blah blah. So
Stop the social
stop it,
comparison.
right? Stop it.
Just compare to yourself.
Exactly. And we kind of want to wrap this up here. Like, is that we've, you might be seeing, okay, I feel like I'm actually might be doing okay now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you might be going along here, like we were mentioning at the very beginning. It's like it feels like on pause or whatever. There's subtle signs where you actually may not be doing okay, and we want to share some warning signs.
Mm-hmm. Or you're
That,
doing okay, and then you become maybe eventually doing not okay.
well, you might be
Or the start of.
off track.
Yeah.
Right. And just warning signs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That you should be paying attention to. So the first thing I think is that your monthly bills surprise you if you review your statements.
Mm-hmm. Surprise you in a sense of what, though?
Like, holy shit, I spent a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You should be able to reconcile that every single spend, because in this day and age of credit cards, like there's everything can be tracked, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of these, if I knew I spent $400 on a dinner for family or whatever, you shouldn't be surprised by that. Be like, holy crap, that put me way over my limit.
Yeah.
Right. Or all these like Tim Horton, Starbucks,
frappuccinos and lattes.
Yeah. So, and then thing about like paying minimum credit card bills.
Yeah.
Right. Or borrowing to pay your bills. That's kind of an early warning sign that, it might be coming off the rails.
Yep. The other thing I want to mention about that is I find with online shopping now, you have the option of paying later. I don't know if you notice that now. On every single website that you buy stuff off, you can pay with your credit card, and they have an option where you can like do installments. And that's another warning sign. The only reason to do installments is if there is zero interest on your installment. And it's the only reason you're doing that is because you want to take the money and invest that money so it's say something's $1,000 and I'd rather pay $200 a month than $1,000 right away. You're spent on that first month, that $800 is going to something else that's useful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? That's the only reason why you want to do that. And you're paying zero interest on it. But if you feel like, oh, I'm spending $1,000 on this thing, but you know what? I can't afford it right now because, I need another 4 other paychecks to pay for it. Like that's a warning sign to me.
Yep.
Right? That mentality of saying, oh, it's giving me the option of I can only afford this if they divide my payments over 5 times.
Yeah, it's getting dangerous. So it's the whole layaway thing, right? This is layaway, but on steroids, and it's applying to everything. You can see it on Amazon. You can see
everything.
Alibaba, even Temu.
Yeah, okay? Even Temu has
something as cheap as $1.46. They will say, "Hey, do you want to pay this in 6 monthly installments of 25 cents?" Like, why? Right? But that's the idea that they're trying to condition you so that you're like, oh, well, yeah, if I just kind of do monthly installments for everything, I can afford it. But it gets you into this debt cycle that you can never get out of.
That's right.
This is we should do another one on this one, Jen. That's a good one.
Yep.
What else? Warning signs.
Ooh, fighting with your partner about money.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Why would that be a warning sign?
Right? When you're having arguments or you're having disagreements of something that's not aligned, like that's obviously, that's no brainer there. Like there's obviously something that is triggering that argument or triggering that misalignment, right? So how to counteract that? Talk it out. Figure out what the issue is and come to a conclusion.
You spent $456 on your nails this month?
But I need the biogel, for vacation so they don't break.
Fucking hot girl hamster meal.
That's right.
Um, and yeah, okay, so there's another one here too. Just kind of it piggybacks off my little rant I had there. Is this mentality that if you find yourself saying this is, I don't know how I'll pay for it, but you're still going buy it anyways. If you say that to yourself, like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but I'm still just going to go fucking buy it
Yeah.
or do it.
That phrase is not a joke.
Yeah, it is seriously not a joke.
People say that like in just, oh, I don't want to pay for it, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Is that a real statement, or are you just saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when people do say that, there's actually
truth to it.
a
There's
truth to it,
truth.
even though they kind of pass it off as a joke.
Yeah. And it's no joke, because the fact is, if you are saying that, it means you're trying to cover the issue of not being able to pay it off with a joke, humor.
Yeah. Humor, yeah.
Right. And it ain't joke if you broke. So just please, if you are finding yourself saying that. One here is that if you find yourself like talking about money is becoming boring. Now let me preface this.
Money is boring.
Money is pretty boring.
It is boring.
It's a pretty stale topic. Okay. But the thing about if you talk to people that are good with their money, people are good with their money is because they're very consistent with their routines around money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just like anything, just like a very fit person is consistent with their diet and their exercise.
Yep.
They're there for a reason, is because that discipline put them there.
Yeah.
So if you're finding that you're not like, oh, it's just like, yeah, I don't care about talking about it anymore. It's not, okay, yeah, it's not invigorating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that if you feel like you don't care about talking about it anymore,
mm-hmm.
that becomes the problem.
Yeah. I think the interest comes in not like, oh, what are these financial terms?
Yeah.
And oh, like, how do you calculate this? That's like the boring part. I think for me, the interesting part is how this person or this business like earned that money or found that income or saved the money or invested their money. Like, how did they do it?
Yep.
And yeah, obviously the financial terms and the calculations come with all that, learning that process, but understanding how they did it and trying to apply that to my life, like that to me is the interesting part.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just the reason why we are so interested in learning about people's journeys.
Yeah.
Right. And talking to people, because you won't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
But if you're able to uncover some of these things that people did, you know, just like whether it's like, oh, what did you do with your diet to get yourself so fit?
Yeah.
Or what exercises did you do? It's the same thing as like, how did you save your money first? As basic as that,
Mm-hmm.
right? How did you manage your spending habits?
Yep.
What did you do to increase your income? What did you invest in? Right? What other things did you do outside of that? Et cetera, et cetera. You see how that conversation evolves and it becomes more interesting.
It becomes interesting.
Yeah.
Not what is interest rate.
Yeah.
That's the difference in conversation.
It's
like,
true. Yeah.
How boring. What is interest rates? Like
an RRSP is
exactly. But if someone told you, this is how I use my RRSP to do this and, you know, save money or save taxes, doesn't that sound a lot more interesting than what is an RRSP?
You save taxes? Oh,
exactly.
Man. Every CPA's dream, every CPA's wet dream right now.
But that's the difference, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think lastly here is like, after, you know, all these things that we talked about, it's really easy to just kind of say, okay, either yes or no, right? You put yourself in one of those camps. But when it comes down to it, when you are doing financially well, you'll be able to see that in a slow process. It's hard to see, like you mentioned impatience, right? Thing about being financially well off takes time, right? It takes this discipline, and it's this slow building process that requires consistency. And if you're able to apply that discipline and recognize some of these things that we talked about and, you know, apply it to your own journey and maintain this long-term view, dude, it just works itself out. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Right. You talk about it, you implement all these things, then down the road, it just magically happens. You're like, whoa, how did I get here? Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out to the Black Wealth Co. here is that that's the consistency is key, is a term that I use from them. So, and And jokingly, the last one here too is if this is kind of a bonus one. I feel like if you're listening to this podcast or other podcasts about financial literacy, you're probably doing okay, or you want to do better.
Yeah,
you just don't recognize it.
And that's the first step, I think, is wanting to do
Mhm.
something about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you are not saving. Maybe you are that 10% that doesn't save. Whatever.
Or you haven't.
Anyways, go ahead.
Or you haven't thought about investing, right? Like, let's say life has gotten in the way, right?
Yep.
You've been figuring out how to like become an adult, and now you're just kind of like, oh shit, well, what do I do about the next 20 years? Yeah, okay. You didn't start investing when you're 20. That's okay. Stop listening to what everyone says. Oh, if you invested $1,000 into like,
it would have become $1 billion now. Who cares?
Yeah, you can't change anything about that. So what you could do is change now.
That's right.
So
if you're listening to this podcast, if you are making that step, taking that action to, learn about financial literacy, then kudos to you. You are making that first step.
Yeah, like reach out to us. That's the thing, right? We put this out here for free, not asking for anything in exchange, only because we want to see people do better every single year. We want someone's life to be impacted positively, because the idea is that if you can't impact someone's life positively, what's the point of you doing anything?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether it's your own family, your friends, your whatever, your business that you're working on. Like, the whole idea is so that we can all enjoy this together.
That's right.
Right? Because you could be that rich ass person with the Lambo and just driving by yourself.
That's no fun.
It's
well, it might be fun for the first 10 minutes, but after that, it's not fun.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Maybe 15 minutes. I don't know.
Let me tell you this. Before I met Jen, no, we were dating before we got married, right? My few friends and I got some motorcycles, crotch rockets, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it was always this thing where Jen was against it, my parents were against it, and obviously for reason, but this thing about having a crotch rocket was this like, part of an ego thing, right? But then this novelty of riding it, like when you were riding with friends, it was cool. But then you went out for a few times because you're like, well, I got the bike, let's just go ride it. It became really boring after.
Because when you're riding by yourself?
Yeah, you're riding by yourself, because it's like, well, I'm riding by myself. Who else is here to experience it with me?
That's right.
Right? I could be the richest guy and have like the fanciest bike, but I'm riding by myself. Nobody fucking knows anything. Like,
it's boring.
You can never go back to someone and be like, hey, you remember that time we rode through this place and that place and almost killed myself and blah, 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 or whatever? No. Right? It's not the same.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Don't buy a motorcycle.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was part of the agreement. So, but anyways, hey guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Like I said, don't ask for anything in return, but we do ask, please like, share, comment, give us a rating if you can. It's really helpful to be able to share this and have these conversations, reach out to other people that may have never heard of these things when they were growing up, right? And the whole idea is these are tough life decisions that we all go through, and we want to be able to give some insight to people that are trying to make a change in their life. Yeah. So
it's definitely an emotional journey as well.
It sure is. So
those who are listening, you guys are probably doing better than you think.
Yeah, you are doing okay, man. You're doing okay. All right, hit that like, subscribe, share, rate, whatever. Please do it now.
Alrighty.
Okay. Till next time.
See ya.
Peace.
Your Everyday Rich podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. Any such information or other material should not be construed as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a qualified professional.